Mada ya leo, Bwana pia leo si tuko hapa na shida. Wewe pamoja na speaker wetu, MCS nimeshukuru wako hapa kwa hii summit. Kuna issue iko hapa town, kwa hii ward ya township. Hii town, sisi mara mingi, sisi ushukuru serikali sana kwa any information ambayo inatupa kwa villages. So ningependa leo mshare hii story cause ni very serious. Na imeanza this year, kuanzia mwezi wa 3 ama wa 2. Kuna drone ilikuja ikazunguka one side ya township. Inakaa kama ile ya wale majamaa walikuwa wanatafuta, ya zile ilikuwa inatafutanga marisasi kule. Tukao tu tunasikia inapita juu kama ifanu kwa maboma. Mwisho tukaambiwa kuna maongezi tupatane kwa churches. One of the church hapa Soweto. Watu wakaenda huko. Ikaongelewa mambo na kama kuna maendeleo fulani inaletwa kwa one of the villages ambaye ni Soweto. Ya World Bank. Na wenye walikuwa hapo ni watu wa Equity na gari yao. Na some village admins hakuwa na NMCA. So hapo wakasema hapa maana ya kuja hapa ni kuende kufanya mambo ya drainage, jima barabara nini. So ndio maana wamekujia. Tumebahatikiwa kama one side ya hiyo villages ya township. Ikawa imechaguliwa Soweto zote, California, Kambi Swahili. Tukasema Mungu ametusaidia. Immediately wakatuambia mchague kamati. Kachaguana chairman, sijui nani, kila kitu ikachaguliwa. Tukaambiwa sasa muende. Naulizia tu, ni swali yangu nauliza because kuna watu wanalia sahi. Na sisi paraliko ndo tunasumbuliwa. Juzi wakakuja wakasema mrudi tena. Kukuja wakaambia watu kuna agreement ya 95 years. Munisikize vizuri. Mimi niko na 40 something years sahi. Nimesign huko. Na kabla waseme hivyo walikuwa wameshachukua makere ya watu. Photocopies na IDs. Na hii shida yote inaletwa na village elders. Because hao ni kupelekwa mahali na kuagree. Sijui kama hiyo iko kwa law ama mnazijua. So baada ya kuchukua details za watu wamekuja wamesema ni kusaini ya 95 years. Inaenda kama lease. Na same time walikuwa wamesema on the first time kwamba ni wanataka kupeana the free naitoje hii vitu yenye hatujawahi pata kama Waturkana title deed. So ili tukashangaa ina change aje from title deed to agreement of 95 years. Na ni one side of town. Na sio slums. Those are not slums. Ebitema MCS mnaelewa hii maneno. Town hapa tunajua slums ni Kambi Mawe, Kambi Makuti, Kambi Moto, Seliad kidogo. Because mimi ni chairperson wa CHVs pia hapa town. Na nasimamia hiyo township, the 12 villages. Tunajua slums ni 3. Maybe tukiongeza kidogo nyuma zenye ziko town. Na inasaidiwa na churches. Na yekwe dhuro ni mmoja. The speaker alichangia Kambi Mawe ile wakati ilichomeka. Kato 2 million tukajengewa manyumba hapo ndio sasa watu wanakula starehe. So kama support imekuja kwa sub county, tuongele kama ni support ya title deeds kiserikali. Inafaa ishike kama ni sub county moja, kama ni shortage ya pesa ya kusupport inaenda na sub county. Ama na ward complete. Sio some individual villages yenye tunajua tu iko karibu. Sisi tulifikiri mambo ya laga. So tuliita mpaka MCA wetu. Tukaambiwa ni lazima tufanye hivyo. Hata municipal manager alikuja akasema muagree. Although tulikuwa tumesha sign some of the people. Tu mtusaidie ekuru huko kama uko hapa naona huko. Mr. Lumumba MCS wakando na hii town. Mtu fafanulie maana alafu mtueleze cause nimeona wazee walianza kuinua sauti huko. Maybe wako na they are aware of this business. So ya mwisho Bwana Lumumba nilisikia jana watu wakisema hapa tumekosa watu wa kwenda kufanya nini? kupeana awareness huko kama sisi paralegals. Ni ukweli tuko wachache.
Wale ambao wamezungumza tafadhali. Thank you so much. At this point in time, permit me to introduce to you Justice Patrick J. Otieno, who will be giving a speech, and of course in consideration of also some of the issues that have been raised at Justice, you will maybe touch a bit if you so wish. So, but Jewish Justice serves as the Lord Dua at the Lord Dua High Court, which handles cases across Turkana County. He holds a Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of Nairobi, that is 1991, and a diploma in the law from the Kenya School of Law 1992, and was admitted to the bar in 93. Prior to his judicial appointment, practiced law extensively, beginning as State Counsel at the State Law Office in 1993 to 1994. Then in private firms including Ombija Wasuna and Co. Advocates and Wasuna and Co. 1993 to 1998, before joining Otieno Yogo and Co. Advocates in 1999. He later served as managing partner at Otieno Yogo or Juro and Co. Advocates from 2011 until his elevation to the bench in 2015. Outside the courtroom, Justice Patrick J. Otieno also serves as the president of Kenya Judges Welfare Association, advocating for the welfare and professional interest of judges of the superior courts of Kenya. Judge also takes time to engage in community life betterment initiatives for the poor, marginalized, and vulnerable. For that, he sits in the board of Kituo cha Sheria and Our Lady of Perpetual Help for the widows and orphans. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Justice Patrick J. Otieno, Judge of the High Court of Kenya at the Lodwar. Karibu sana. Karibu.
Hamjambo. Kwetu salamu ni ya bure, na ukiomba unyimwe hujakaribishwa. Hamjambo tena. Hejoka. Nyai. Asanteni sana. I'm supposed to present a paper, but reading your own work can be very difficult. And therefore, I'll start with the easy one. Between yesterday and today, some matters have arisen. One of them is the question of marriage. Who is a wife? Nani ni mke aliyeoleka kulingana na sheria ya Kenya? Na hii si yangu. Najua hii sheria ni wakina speaker wanatengeza huko juu. Sasa vile chairman ya Professor Association amesema ya kwamba hiyo si yenu, mi pia niseme si yangu, lakini ni ya Wakenya. Hiyo sheria sio lazima uende ufanye marriage uko kwa AG. Hiyo sheria ni ya kwamba kama umeoa mke wako ama wake zako, ni vizuri serikali ijue ya kwamba wewe kama mzee uko na wake wawili ama wa 10. Hiyo ndio maana inatakana registration ifanyike. Ndio sababu vile mama aliuliza jana, wewe umeoleka uko na bwanako hapa, hajakuelezea kwamba una wenzako huko nje. Siku ile kitokea vurugu, hiyo certificate ndio itasaidia. Tuko pamoja. Hiyo ndio sababu ya kufanya hiyo registration. Kwa sababu hii Kenya, kama uko na kameli zako 20 hivi, kuna mtu hana na anataka kusema huyu mzee wacha tu afariki, tutangangana na familia yake. Hata sio kupata, ni kuwapea tu problems. Si kuna watu kama hao? Sasa hiyo registration ni vizuri fanyike, lakini mimi naonelea tu sio lazima ukuje Lord ufanye registration. Mimi naonelea tu muongee na chiefs na tuongee na wabunge wetu. Sinawezekana ya kwamba hii certificate hii ifanyike kama vile tunafanya registration ya death. Registration ya death inatokezea huko, notification inatolewa wapi? Si kwa chief na assistant chief. Sasa inaweza fanyika hivyo. Sasa hii ni question of law reform and implementation of that act. Inawezekana. sio lazima ukuje Lodwar. Sasa tumekubaliana, si mimi ninasema ya kwamba lazima upewe cheti, ni sheria ndiye nasema hivyo. Tuko pamoja? Ingine ni kazi ya uwakili. Wakili wote uchukua ile oath, na kwenye hiyo oath jukumu lao la kwanza ni kusaidia koti kufanya haki. Ukienda kwa wakili hujamnunua, utampea fees lakini hujamnunua huyo wakili. Lazima awe ofisa wa kotini, ndio atabaki na hiyo uwezo ya kusaidia koti ikupee haki yako. Na MCA jana alisema ya kwamba anashangaa sana, na mtu ameripita hapa, I think ni chairman, ya kwamba wewe umepeana pesa kwa wakili lakini hujapata kile ulikuwa nataka. Mnakumbuka ile hadithi ya Biblia, yule wale wa mama wawili walikuwa ng'ang'ana mtoto? Ukisema ya kwamba ukienda kotini na wakili lazima upate, lazima ushinde, ama lazima nyinyi wote washinde, hiyo haiwezekani, kwa sababu ni mtarudi huko. Itakuwa ni lako, lakini kwa sababu yule mwingine pia apate, mtagawana, sio kihaki. Tuko pamoja? Haki nasema tutaangalia, tuinukue vizuri, tujue ni nani mwenye haki. Ona tu saizi uko na, tuseme gari lako, mtu ameichukua, ameiba. Kwa vile amechukua wakili, ni haki ya kwamba apewe. Si mwenye gari lazima apatikane. Sasa sio ya kwamba ukipewa wakili lazima upate. Koti itakupea ile sheria inasema upate. Kwa sababu wakili kazi yake ni kukupea, sio kukushinda kesi, kukushindia kesi. Wakili kazi yake ni kupea haki yako kulingana na sheria. Having said that, I adopt all the protocols established yesterday. Mine is to talk to you on the subject, no one is below the law, advancing justice through grassroots legal empowerment. Two things: legal empowerment through grassroots operations. Kulingana mimi, hapa inachajika ya kwamba tufanye kitu inaitwa civic education. Watu wetu wajue haki yao. Watu wetu wajue ukifika kotini, hujaenda huko kuhukumiwa, umeenda huko kutafuta ukweli na haki. According to me, questions of human rights in Africa, East Africa, Kenya, and even Turkana County has very rich historical background. We have international statutes that operate in this area, at least in the African region. We have the international ones operating throughout the world. We are signatories to those instruments. Those instruments lay good basis for what the bigger community of mankind consider to be the basic human rights. But these are not strange to our societies. Even in Africa, there were basic things that were to be recognized, including human dignity, the right to belong in associations including marriage, the right to life, and therefore, in many African communities, if you killed somebody, there were sanctions. The most common sanctions among most African communities was excommunication. Was it not so? Unatolewa mali huko kwa sababu wewe umekuwa chafu, umetoa damu ya ndugu yako, pengine wanachukua ng'ombe zako. Kwingine kama Western, ukiwa mtu wa kijiji chako, kitu cha kwanza wanasema ni ya kwamba wanakuja wanamaliza kila kitu chenye uhai kwa nyumba yako. Kama ni kuku, kama ni ng'ombe, kama ni bananas, wanafyeka yote, kisha wanachoma nyumba yako na wanakuambia uza shamba lako uende kwako. That to me underscores how life was important to the African communities. And that is the same thing. The question is, how did we enforce those our laws, and whether they fit in the current dispensation, which we agreed yesterday was largely transplanted on us from our colonial masters. And therefore, we agreed on convergence. Our traditions must converge with the statute law and the constitution. All our traditions and customs should be valid if they meet two tests. One, they don't breach the Bill of Rights. Secondly, they are not repugnant to justice and morality. Big words. Kizungu kubwa hizo, sivyo? What people have been asking, whose morality? Whose justice? Nimekuwa Turkana for about 1 year now. The stories I get is that the murders that reach court may not be 30%. Where do the others go? The others go through AJS systems, or what you call community-based justice systems. And I'll ask Mzee here to tell me, if you killed a man from the neighboring community, what would the Turkanas do before the High Court came to Turkana? Mzee, chairman of elders, kama kungetokea mauaji kati ya kijiji chako na kijiji ile lingine, wa Turkana wangesuluhisha namna gani? Mzee, utanisaidia? Give him nini?
Yeah. Kama iko peace between the two communities, the elders sit and do compensation. If there is time of war, they go and revenge and kill the other one on their side. That has been the trend over the years.
Even now,
if it is within the one society,
yes,
Turkana alone, then they sit again.
No, my question was, forget about the other communities around you, like the Toposas.
Pokot.
It is just a Turkana clan against another Turkana clan. What would happen?
They will sit and do compensation.
Yes. Tell these people, what was the nature of that compensation?
They give livestock.
Livestock. What a number? A woman different from a man or the same?
In some areas, a man is 60 cows.
Yes.
A lady is 120.
120 cows.
In some area, it's different. But a long time ago, that has been the trend.
Okay, thank you.
And then the OSPD comes in the new law and say, we arrest a person who killed. But this people said, even if in prison, when the time it comes, he will pay compensation.
Yes. That is what Professor will call you, is called double jeopardy. Mzee wa elders, wacha nisikie kutoka kwako, hata mimi nijifunze.
Hakuna sheria tumeweka ati kiasi fulani ya mali ndio unapeanwa.
Yes.
Anaangaliwa huyu mtu ana mali kiasi gani, ana ng'ombe kiasi gani, ana mbuzi kiasi gani, ama ngamia kiasi gani. Sasa hapo wakati wanakaa wanasema kuliko kuua yule aliyeua mwingine, wacha tuchukue mali. Wanachukua kiasi ya mali ambayo wanakubaliana na wazee wale wamekaa mahali pale kama familia, wote wanasikizana, wanasema jameni, mzuue, wacha mchukue mali, abaki maskini. Hiyo ndio malipo.
Na kama mimi ni ule muuni, sina changu, sina hata mbuzi moja.
Asante. Wewe utapewa sheria au utapambana na wanaume ya hiyo familia ukipatikana mahali popote. Hiyo tu.
Utawawa.
Asante.
Thank you. Mzee wa tatu. It's okay.
Hata wanaweza chukua mali ya baba yake ama ya familia yake.
Okay.
Kama wanataka kusaidia.
Thank you. Yes.
Asante. Kwa majina ni na Benyo Senior. Mimi ni chief, na hii swali mimi naona ni kama inanilenga kwa sababu I practice it most of the time. Sasa kawaida ile mauaji inategemea kulifanyikaje, the cause ya ile death, alafu na gender ya mwenye ameuliwa. Nakumbuka 2023 mwaka juzi tu, the eve ya hiyo Christmas ya 2023, kuna vijana wawili na msichana walikuwa wanaenda kesha. Bahati mbaya msichana akaanguka kwa pikipiki, kwa ile kelele ya kwenda kesha, wakasahau pikipiki iko mbie, kakanyeka bonde, ikatupa msichana na akakufa. Sasa wakataka kuua kijana. Sasa ikawa ngumu kuua kijana, ile gari ilipeleka hiyo msichana. Yaani msichana alianguka, akaita gari, wakakimbiza hospitali, lakini akakufa njiani. Sasa wakarudi cha nyumbani, wakijifanya sini ajali tu ilifanyika. Kufika hapa mwenye aliua ako wapi? Hajakuwa kwa gari. Hebu kifungua hii gari. Sasa kijana ule driver amekuwa mwerevu, akafunga gari. Sasa kufunga gari, wakakimbizana na driver, wakanyang'anya kifunguo ndio wafungue ule wakuje wamuue. Sasa kijana driver akatoroka na pikipiki, akaenda akaleta askari watatu, akakuta wamesanyana watu karibu 300, kila mtu alikuwa na bunduki na panga, wakafukuza askari. Ndio mimi nikapigwa simu, kapigia OCS, akatuma wale wabaya 12, ndio ndio sasa tukakondoni area, tukawafukuza, alafu ndio tukarescue wale watu wawili. Sasa mwenye amekufa ako kwa gari kwa boot, alafu hata huyu mwingine ako ndani na gari imefungwa. Sasa kitu ambayo ilifuata ilikuwa sasa tufanye namna gani, tuende mbele, sijui nini. Wakaamua, mimi nikaambia sasa kitu tutafanya, hii kitu ni ajali. Unajua wataka kujua ni ajali, wanasema hao vijana kuna possibility walikusakusa hii msichana kwa pikipiki ndio akaruka. Sasa wanasema tu ni mada. Sasa wameandikia mada ambaye hakuna mtu anataka kujua hata kulifanyikaje. Sasa tukaenda tukakaa chini, wazee wote ya upande mbili. Sasa usually wanapiga the value ili mali huyu msichana angetoa kama angewaleka. Sasa hiyo ndio mna negotiate. Sasa mimi nikafuata question kwamba tuko na wasichana wengi ambaye hawaelewi. Sasa hapo tungejuaje sasa huyu angeolewa? Sasa ndio ile price ifanye nini? Ishike juni. How sure are you huyu angeolewa, kwa sababu wengi including hata madada yake wengine wametoroka bila kuolewa. Akaanza kusema unajua chifu ninyi ndio mnaharibu hii maneno sijui nini. Sasa tukaongea mpaka sasa tukaestimate, let's say huyu msichana angetoa let's say ngamia 10 ili ya kike. Sasa tukakubaliana tutoe karibu half hiyo ngamia. Sasa ikawa sasa ule na kama ule sasa hana ngamia. Sasa tukaongea mpaka sasa tuka-arrive at a conclusion ya kwamba wacha tafute ngamia 2 ya kike, mbuzi 50, sijui na kitu kingine kidogo, alafu sasa wakawa compensated na ikawa namna hiyo. Sasa in short ni kukubaliana, yani wanakufanya kama ni msichana wanakufanya uowe. Uowe kama marehemu ni kama bibi yako au ndio ulioa bibi yako. Utupatie mali. Alafu sasa kwa wanaume alafu kwa wanaume
yes, maliza mzee.
Dogo sorry. Alafu kwa wanaume hawakuangi sio first sana huwa wanatafuta huyo labda muue afanye nini, alafu na wakati mwingine wakuona kama hiyo offense ilikuwa serious, kama mwenye labda ametenda hiyo kitendo labda anaweza kuwa ni mtu tu hivi ametoa mtu amana. Sasa hata wakati mwingine wana decide kuua mtu kwa hiyo boma, kama huyo hatapatikana anawashurutisha ndio mlete huyo or we kill one of the family members kwa niaba yake.
Thank you mzee.
Yes.
Asanteni sana. Ama kuna mama nataka kuongea so that I'm gender sensitive. Yes. Mama tueleze.
Habari ya asubuhi. Kwa majina naitwa Ann Elamach, chief wa Kanamkemer. Kwa hivyo kwa wageni karibuni sana, hapa ndio area yangu ya kazi. Masaibu kama haya yamenipata hata na mimi wakati mmoja, na kulikuwa ni mambo tu ya vijana. Kijana akapatana na rafiki yake wakatoroka. Kijana akaenda akaficha msichana. So wakati watu wa msichana walitafuta msichana wao wakamkosa, walikuja mpaka kwa family ya kijana. Wakaraid hiyo family, wakakamata mama na msichana mwingine tena mdogo, wakapeleka kwao, wakamfungia huko. Sasa wakasema kama yule msichana wao hatarudishwa, huyu msichana mwingine atabaki kwa hii boma kama nafasi ya huyo mwingine. So familia wakang'ang'ana juu, wakajaribu mbinu zote, wakapata yule msichana, wakamrudisha. Walipomleta msichana, mandugu ya vijana wa yule msichana mwingine waliamka. Wakaanza kupiga watu wenye walirudisha huyu msichana. Kwa bahati mbaya kijana mmoja alipigwa kwa kisogo na akakufa hapa. Yaani akasirai, akapelekwa hospitali. So akiwa huko akaaga. Sasa baada ya hapo maneno ikaanza. Sasa ile family ya kijana mwenye alitorosha msichana, ambaye sasa kijana wao ndugu ya yule mwenye alitorosha msichana ndio yule alipigwa, sio kijana mwenye alitorosha msichana, ndugu yake mkubwa ndio alipigwa na ndio huyu amekufa. Sasa family ikaamka sasa wakasema now sisi pia tunaenda revenge kwa ile family ambayo iliua kijana wao. So baada ya hiyo maneno kufanyika, tukasema hapana, hii kesi lazima iende polisi. Watu walikuja wakasakanywa, ile grupu yote yenye ilipigana walikuja wakawekwa ndani, wakapelekwa police station. So wazee wakaamka tena wakasema haya maneno situfanye tu maneno, tukae chini tuone vile tutaongea, tutajadiliana. Wakabembelezana huko polisi. So wakasema okay, muende muongee, na mkiongea chifu awe hapo ndani kwa maongezi yenu ndio atupatie suluhisho ya yale maneno mtakuwa mmeamua. Walikuja wakakaa chini, wakajadili, wakaongea, wakasema wale wazazi wa kijana wakatoa faini yao, wakasema hii familia nyingine itoe ngamia 40, watoe mbuzi 300, kwa sababu yule kijana alikuwa ndio firstborn wa boma na ako na familia yake, ameacha bibi na watoto. Sasa nani atasaidia hao watoto? Sasa ikawa ni kwamba ile family itowe kitu ambayo itasaidia wale watoto na mwanamke na pia familia ya hiyo kijana kwa jumla. So unaona ilikuwa ngumu. Tulichukua karibu wiki moja kwa kuongea, lakini baadaye walikuja wakaelewana. Na kwa sababu hiyo ilikuwa ni jamii moja, watu hawakuwa wanataka kuwa na chuki. So wakamaliza hiyo maneno, wakatoa mbuzi 150 na wakatoa ngamia 5 wakapeana kwa ile boma, na hiyo maneno ikaisha hivyo, tukarudisha hiyo report.
Thank you. From this, Prof, I think if you become young again, you can come here and give birth to many girls. You will be a millionaire without practicing law. But I get it. Yesterday we were talking about convergence. Hawa watatu wametuambia ya kwamba ikiwezekana watu watasikizana huko nyumbani, wakubaliane, mambo isiende kwa polisi. Sio ni njia moja. Hiyo kikosekana, wataenda polisi. Mtu achajiwe, aletwe kwangu, nimpee hukumu kama atapatikana na hatia. Lakini hata kuletwa kotini sio mwisho ya maagano. Hata mkifika kwangu, bado mnaweza omba ya kwamba twende tukasikizane. Na inafanyika. Nimeona Professor, it happens in this county. And it happens not only here, it happens in all pastoral counties. Nyinyi sijui mnaita aje, Wasomali wanaita blood money. Paying for the blood you have lost. And fortunately for you, you are like them. It's a question of ngamia, it's a question of cows, it's a question of money, it's a question of goats. And it happens. So that is the convergence. But the question I asked, and why we engage in that discussion, is that in the current Kenya, with our law, the written law, is it still acceptable that if I kill, either by accident like the motorcycle one, or deliberately, is it still possible that you take a knife and a panga and come and kill me? Where are we going to end? I worked in Meru, and the Merus have also a way of handling it. They have a council called the Njurin Cheke, a small council. A thin council, not small, thin council. Lean or thin, to mean it is pure. So in Meru, things happen like this. If I found you in my Mira farm, stealing Mira, I'll cut your right hand. If I'm arrested, taken to court, the court will make a very big mistake in releasing me on bond. Because if I'm released on bond, nitashikwa, nitapelekwa kwa mto, watakata mguu yangu ya right vile nilikata yako. So the next time I go back to court, I'll be there with the person whose hand I cut before. Both of us have no right hand. And then we'll be saying, tumekubaliana. Mlikubaliana aje? Tulienda kwenye mto, tukamkata vile alinikata. The question of justice morality comes to be asked. In that question, in that circumstances, is it still just and moral? Now, those are the thresholds of the Constitution. These your practices as you do them today. Can we say they sit well with justice and our morality even as Africans? Not the Africans of 100 years ago, Africans of today. We are talking about justice. Because colonials came, they established for us systems. We did a new constitution. We said government, state services must be availed to people at the nearest convenient places. That's why you have devolution. You have an MP and an MCA to pass your concerns to the government of the day. Even judicial services must be available to the people. And we come back to say, how do we empower people to access their rights? There are gaps in my assessment. And I'll narrow down to Turkana. Turkana has a landmass of over 77,000 square kilometers. That, in my assessment, would take the 5 counties in Western, 6 counties in Nyanza, and 3 other counties in the former Rift Valley. That landmass and the population of about 1.2 million people is served by 2 court stations, Lodwar and Kakuma. In those 2 stations, there are 5 judicial officers, 1 judge, 4 magistrates. When you compare that landmass to the landmass I've told you about in former Nyanza, Rift Valley, and Western, you will count more than 20 court stations and more than 50 judicial officers. So the first gap is physical access. That needs to be done. I may share with you that as a judiciary, our plan is to add 2 other court stations. One in Lokitang to bridge the gap between Lodwar and the northern sub-county. One in south at Lokichar to take care of east and part of south. When the Lokichar court gets established, as a judiciary through the CUC, we are thinking of having 2 other outstations for outreaches. We hope that could be in Lokori or those sides of Kainuk, but Kainuk is so much in the border, Katilu. Those are proposals. Besides that, when that happens, we also hope to do a visiting court in Loima. When Lokitang becomes operational, we can have other courts up there. In the long run, we hope to bridge the gap, but it will not still equate with what happens elsewhere in Kenya. If you go to Kakamega, for example, there's a court in Kakamega, there's a court in Butere, there's a court in Mumias, there's a court in Butali. None of them is more than 40 kilometers away. Yeah? So we are talking of realities. Let's not make judgment. We are talking of realities. These are the gaps we have today. We need to address them. One, as I've said, is physical address. Try and establish court stations in those counties. My view is that many of the happenings, we all encourage mediation. We all encourage negotiations. We all encourage outside court dispute resolution. but how much impropriety, yapi mabaya hufanyika huko chini. Jana tulipewa story na bwana MCA hapa. Kama ange intervene, hiyo familia wangepoteza mbuzi 12, sivyo? Sisi kama judiciary tunasema ya kwamba hiyo tutayapuuza, tutayarekebisha tukiwa na nafasi mzuri ya kuweka kotini huko mashinani. The other gap is that judiciary and government services are becoming digital. But in this county of Turkana, do we have, even if you are to work on your phone, do we have network connectivity in all corners of this county? How strong is that mobile connectivity? That is another area that there's a serious gap. Now, we need, for us to empower people and give to them justice, we need what is called people-centered justice. To me, that people-centered justice comes along with the need for legal empowerment, comes along by way of training community paralegals, comes along by way of training peace builders, coming along in training the people who are there to serve Kenyans, the chiefs, the assistants, Mijikumi, Nyumba Kumi elders, and any other person of goodwill to be in this process of dispute resolution as a way of getting justice to the people. We can narrow down to justice for the indigenous and informal communities. I had a problem with that word of informal communities. But I was told this had in mind the communities like the refugee communities. You find yourself in a small area, you don't have a common thread by genealogy that puts you together, but you have found yourself put together by adversity in the sense that you are running away from some adversity. So, this is necessary because of the endemic exclusions. When we talk of distances, people are forced to go to the police to sort out the problem because they can't access a formal court system. That is an exclusion. People cannot do their cases online. They cannot even make reports online because of inability, either because of poverty or because of infrastructure by the telcos themselves. That is also provides a strong way of exclusion. And those exclusions need to be addressed. I've told you what the institution judiciary could do, but we have our leaders here. This world is all about lobbying and asking for services. That could also be done for purposes of infrastructure. There's one thing I wanted to say about the distances. And this is about communication. Forget about telecommunication. Now talk about road transport only. I do visitations in Lokitang. I've been thinking it's 200, but speaker yesterday told me that it is 240. When you talk to other people, they think that is too far. Because when I'm in Kisumu, and I'm talking of 220, I've gone from Kisumu to Gilgil or Naivasha. That's a long distance. That's a very, very long distance. For me, as a magistrate or a judge, to just go and do work. If I'm doing that distance of Kisumu, I would have passed, let me count for you. I would have passed Kisumu law courts. I would have passed Winam law courts. I would have passed Tamu law courts. I would have passed Kericho law courts. I would have passed Nakuru law courts and El Damaravin on the side. I would have passed the court in Gilgil, and I would have reaching Naivasha. Within 220 kilometers. For Turkana County, it is one court. That is an exclusion we need to address as a community. We need to, and this we have covered, we need to balance, and a lady asked me the question. There's a Turkana traditional marriage, and there's the demand for registration, which takes precedence. Kati ya desturi ya ndoa ya Turkana na hii sheria ya serikali, gani iko na uzito kuliko ingine? I didn't get the chairman. What did you say? Chairman, which takes precedence?
No, we say that. Actually say that this is everything we are doing is 50 years.
Yes.
And our community has been there for a million years. So it tells you, if you take care of what has been working, you go for the cultural one.
We go to the cultural.
Because we have to become modernized, and I have told you for the modern the one document, they thought I was telling the system don't give certificates, we give certificates. Maybe we need to, like I said, we bridge it and we do the convergence.
Now, with the mind of a lawyer, I will tell you that there's a law in Kenya that gives the rankings of our law. Customary law is recognized, but customary law falls below the statutory law. So when the two are in conflict, the statutory law will take precedence. And there's a good reason, Chairman and my elders. Kuna sababu nzuri ya kwamba ile sheria imetoka bunge iwe na uzito kuliko desturi ya kimila. Sababu ni hiki. Sisi sote ni wa Kenya. Huwezi toka hapa uende Marsabit uambie lazima mfanye vile tunafanya Turkana. Huwezi toka hapa uende Kuria uambie lazima mfanye vile Turkana wanafanya. Kwa sababu hao pia wako na desturi zao, sivyo? Sasa hii sheria inatoka National Assembly ni ya sisi zote. That's the reason why it must take precedence. But it cannot, we must do deliberate efforts to find a way of convergence where those customary law can be entertained. And I think the law entertains them today. How are they entertained? The law allows you, if you choose to be polygamous, it allows you to marry your many wives, provided register them. And as I told you before, registration is for purpose of protecting them in your absence. So how do we do grassroots empowerment? There are many institutions, and I think Agenda 43 could also be here. I've talked of peace builders, I've talked of community paralegals, and I've talked of accepting those systems that work on the ground. The only thing we need to do is to tell them to be compliant with the national law and what we call the Kenyan appreciation of what the law is, even after answering the question, whose morality, whose justice? The other question to be addressed is inequalities. We talk of customs. Many African customs, except in the matrimonial communities, did not have a place for ladies in decision making. I don't know what it was among the Turkanas, but from yesterday's talk, I was told now there's an inclusion of a lady in the Council of Elders. A step forward. But those exclusions must be avoided. There are communities in this country that if a lady had a dispute against the husband, elders, wacha niseme kwa Kiswahili, kuna communities hapa Kenya, kama wewe ni bibi uko na shida na bwanako, pengine amekuchapa, amekataa kulipa mahari, apeleke watoto shule, unaenda kwa elders, wanakuambia tumepata shtaka lako, lakini wewe nenda ukaketi kwenye ile chini ya ile mti, and then wanafanya kesi yako kama wewe hauko. Lakini bwanako anapewa nafasi, anaongea, alafu anakuita. Tanzazili wanakuita uende kwao, uendi ukitembea, you go no, you go crawling on your buttocks. Yes, yes. Let me not say we are mixed here. So when Mama yesterday talked about nyinyi wa Turkana, men are not supporting them, I think there's a room for development. Accept them more, but I get the impression that, as it were, ladies have more say in what we are going to decide in this country. Our population says ladies are more than men. Sivyo? Na mama alisema hapa jana ya kwamba ukienda ile siku ya kupiga kura, utacount, alisema 1 ama 5 unapata bwana moja. After every 10, 2. That is 5, after every 5, 1. I have some conviction for women empowerment, and I am in some activities to that effect. My analysis is this: ladies, to this extent, and sorry for use these words, have in many situations been their worst enemies. Our Saidiani, in my tribe, and Professor will confirm, they'll say dhako adhaka. A mere woman. When a lady seeks to contest an elective post, they say a mere woman. Atasadia wapi? And I think why you have not been able to elect a lady in this county, except the women rep, is because ladies have not seen themselves as able to stand up and be leaders. They have not seen themselves as equals with men. They have not seen themselves as the people who carry this economy on their backs many times. Professor, I told a friend of mine that if in my next life, I would want to be a Turkana man. Because I'm told in this county, the duty of building a house belongs to the lady. The duty of fencing the home belongs to the lady. The duty of making that home beautiful in all aspects belongs to the lady, including bringing the food. Men in this country are like the lions. You know, in the lion kingdom, man is only there to protect. But the food is brought by the lioness. The lioness decides where is going to be their next nest or den. When the lioness decides when they are moving from one den to the other. So in my next life, I would want to be a Turkana man. And of course, the elders can adopt me, even at this old age. The other item I picked was dispute over land. And this has emerged here very prominently this morning. And somebody asked, which law governs our land in Turkana? My answer is this, that before you think of any other law, think of the Constitution. It's the starting point. Somebody stopping me? Okay. From the other room. So, but there's a reason why we had community land as a statute in this country. The reason is that in some communities, let me say this Kiswahili, kuna jamii Kenya hii wenye vile wanaishi, huwezi sema hiki kipande cha shamba ni la bwana chairman, hiki kingine ni la bwana speaker ama professor. Wanaishi as a community. So that is the reason of having the community land, so that you can take a whole location or even a whole ward and calling this is Lochwang Matak community land, is it? What is the name of that town? Is Lochwang? Yeah. Professor says it's called Ojwang attack. That is an attack by Ojwang. So that is the purpose. But you see, in my just thinking, it requires nobility, it requires integrity, it requires the sense of justice for whoever shall be in charge of that community to administer that land in a just and fair manner. Because I'm thinking that because of population growth, we will not always be pastoralists. It will reach a time that pastoralism will be left because of demand for resources. So at long last, it would come to the level of dividing that land, demarcating to say, this now for family A, this for family B. But that is coming. But for the time being, if I was in this community, I would encourage our people to get a certificate of title, whether under community land or whether as a lease or whether as absolute title, work on it as communities and get their land. That would solve the problem of people coming from the other part of Kenya, getting titles and making you people appear to be vagabonds or just squatters. And let me tell you, what is happening here is not just here. It is also reported to happen a lot in Marsabit. And why it's happening and why people, scavengers for land, are coming for this land is that nobody has laid, people have claims over it, but nobody has had those claims registered and therefore recognized in law. So do everything, and this I think goes to the leadership, the elected leadership. If I was an MCA today, I would say before my tenure ends, at least there's a title, at least one, Atakaman community land in my area. And I tied this with what a gentleman talked here about issuance of title of leases in town to areas which are maybe deemed as slums or areas inhabited by people of low income. I don't know much, but I know that World Bank has been operating in this country, not only in Turkana, but in other counties as well, where informal sector, the people there, in order to improve their living conditions by housing, World Bank comes, develops for you some units, and gives you something to show that that portion of the land belongs to you. I would not confirm whether that's what's happening, but my plea is that as a community, every step, ni mzungu ama waziri ama MCA ndiye amekuja kuchukua shamba letu. And that may be, in my thinking, a result of not being involved. When you talk of participation by the people, one of the reasons why we require participation, the constitution requires participation, is for that acceptability. The constitution requires participation, is for that acceptability. So that this initiative is bought by the people it is going to serve. You know, in a community, even if you want to bring us water, you must tell me, I'm bringing you water. Do you want it? Because somebody will come and say, and I know a project of water that was told, because somebody said, the intention is to poison this water with family planning. So you will stop giving birth. But because the committee was not informed, they rejected the water project. So for elected leaders, public said the water project. So for elected leaders, public participation involves people more. And that is not should not be a favor. That's a condition we dictate. I think I've taken a lot of your time. I will not cover everything in this paper, but I need to highlight the following. One of the areas suffering because of lack of access, lack of empowerment, is the fight against gender-based violence, including sexual offenses. And the exclusion, when you talk about it, to me, it is very bad. I've had a chance of going to the military base just to see what is there. So I drove there on a Sunday, and because I'd met the in charge of the base, so he told me to go and see. And about lunch hour, they have corporate social responsibility. They feed children. And I went there are over 70 children. When I asked, only 2 were going to school. And they were going to school as and when it was possible to go. And then I asked who is going to school. A girl rose up and said she thought she was 12 years, but she was in grade 4. But then after she spoke, one of them said, hata huyu anakudanganya. Huyu amepata bwana. Anatengeza camels and goats because mamake ana namna ya kumpeleka shule, babake alifariki. Mamake hata ana nyumba. So that struck me and struck the in charge of the base. And we said, how do we rescue this girl? So we made some calls. A sister running an education facility in town agreed to accept her. Ours was just to pay his fees and maybe requirements. But as God would have it, his way, at the end of that term, that was first term this year, an organization had taken up the girl. So the girl was rescued. We went back to look for the other boy. Mwalimu told us that he had not been in school for a week because he had gone herding. So our next target is to get that boy. School is now in class 5, grade 5. But in the course of things, one of the classrooms burnt down. The roof was destroyed. One classroom to use. 4, 5 classes. TSC has been magnanimous, and I say this with a heavy heart. In that school, there are 2 teachers. But at the end of the day, we expect these teachers to compete with other schools which are in class 8 but have 16 teachers. Now, exclusion. You are not only excluded from legal services, we are also excluded from accepting and receiving knowledge through education. So, even as we intend to empower the grassroots, who are the agents for that empowerment if we are not getting people to acquire education? That should not come from a judge, but it should come from another Kenyan like me. From a judge, but it should come from another Kenyan like me. Beautifully built school. And I asked, how many streams are you? We are 4 per class. How many teachers are posted here? We have 7 TSC teachers. I asked, how do you bridge the gap? We rely on NGOs and volunteers. But Nagete must compete with the Lions High School with over 100 teachers. Once again, that should be coming from a politician, not from a judge, particularly one from the real Kenya. So, are we as a judiciary able to address the unique circumstances of all our regions in the country? I say no. And that, for that reason, that's why as a judiciary, we have come what is called a multi-door approach to dispensation of justice. That's the reason that now, if we think your dispute should be mediated, we'll take you to mediation. And in mediation now we have court annex mediation, and we are working on the rules to do private mediations, so that you can actually do your mediation in the villages. Only bring to us an agreement for registration. That's why we are encouraging alternative justice systems, so that if the dispute is about unpaid dowry, and since I'm not Turkana, and you bring to me that dispute, I may not be able to give it the justice it deserves, because I may not be able to appreciate the traditions informing why there must be a disagreement of dowry. Because where I come from, it is a shame on a man to live with somebody's daughter, have children without paying dowry. You will be ashamed because where I come from, funerals are big things. And if I'm coming to the funeral where I'm married from, I must be recognized. If I've not paid dowry, I will not be recognized. That to my community is a big shame. And it might not be the same with here. So we encourage alternative dispute resolution to answer to the unique circumstances of the community. And I'll say, as I said yesterday, alternative justice system must not be a structured, court-regulated system. It should be working by its own, depending on the traditions of that particular community. They know what to do. They know what to do to a person who has not paid dowry. They know what to do to a person who has stolen your goat. And we can't say that you steal my 2 goats, I come and take your 3, as Chairman was saying yesterday. That is the sense of justice. Because even in court, if you came, you stole my 2 goats, the court will say, you stole. That's a tort. For a tort, there are damages. So I will not just get my 2 goats. I'll get something over and above. because of the time I've used, because the deprivation you invested on me, and because of I could have convenience, I could have spent some money to come to court and hire an advocate, all those things. It will not be the same. So if you do your dispute resolution at home, that is very welcome in court. We will try what we do. We are trying as a court system that we will harness the sun in Turkana and stop relying on KPLC so that our systems could be running throughout the day using the sun solar power systems. So what are the possible strategic pathways we should use to empower people in the village for purpose of accessing justice? One of them is to have strong connections and partnerships with civil societies, community-based organizations, and any other partner. It could be an individual, to just set up those systems running. If possible, capacity develop the operators on the ground, and we move forward. We need multi-stakeholder collaboration. As a court system, we have something in the law called Court Users Committee. Every court station should have its stakeholders convening at least every 3 months to say what is happening, the good, the bad, the shortcomings, and what can be done. And if you have not heard about the Court Users Committees in Turkana, please, it is there. If you think you are able to join us, pass by the court or write a letter to the head of station. We'll see how to fit you in the court users committees. We need you. We need your opinion, and we need your input on how best we can serve you. In that scheme of things, paralegals and community-based peace builders are very critical. And in the case of collaboration, I'll give you a case study for 2 organizations. One is Kituo cha Sheria, one is IDLO. So what does Kituo cha Sheria do as a pioneer organization in human rights and access to justice? Through its prison justice centers, prison justice centers are this. You go into a prison, like this week we are in Lodwar. It's okay, it's okay. Then you capacity build both prisoners and prison warders. That is important because prisoners have appeals, they have applications to urge before the court. If they are properly done with some little legal input, it makes the wheel of justice to move faster. Kituo cha Sheria also has community-based organization. They call them justice centers. That is a way of capacity building members of the public in order to help people access their rights. IDLO also works around the same space. They have something called Community Justice Program in Uganda. Takes almost the same shape like the Kituo Community Justice Centers. We need to do more. We need to leverage on technology. We need to mainstream alternative dispute resolution and justice systems. We need to bridge the digital divide. We need to create legal consciousness and awareness through civic education. We need to try to mitigate the systemic exclusion in vulnerability. We need to address the glaring legal gaps. And for the judiciary, we need a lot of support from Kenyans to make judiciary adequately resourced, so that when I say that we need a court in Todonyang, for example, it should be a question of not more than 1 year, and you have a station running there. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I intended to share with you. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Justice Otieno. We need to do more justice for him. Let's clap. Wacha tufanye ile ya Nakusa, kwa sababu Nakusa ametoka. Nao neza tawala. Kikia! Work! Kikia na bo! Work! Kikia na bo! Work! Hiyo ndio tunaita paka akitoka panya ametawala. Si ndio? Asanti. I think there is so much. Kuna mengi sana ambayo tumeweza kujifunza kutoka kwa nafasi hiyo. And personally, I think there is so much that I've learned. Ingawaje pia justice, kuna vile tunatofautiana kidogo. Mambo ya kusema kwamba sisi kama wamama hatupendani. I am one person who has always opposed that. Because you push us not to like each other, and then you blame us for not liking each other. You push us not to support one another, and then you blame us for not supporting one another. So that's a debatable thing, and I can take a whole of my energy to prove to you that women love each other. Only that when we come to your bedrooms, there is a way you influence us, and there are other underlying factors. Yeah? Sindio? Naona prof anatingiza kichwa, lakini tukiamua kuchukua podium, mimi na Mrs. Lokuruka na Phoebe, we can convince you by the end of the day. So I know there could be a lot of questions with regards to that particular presentation. But because of time, Mama Rhoda, you'll allow us to go for tea, re-energize, and then come back. If you can come back, the first 15 minutes, we can do a Q&A before we go to the next session. So tafadhali karibuni for tea, and let's continue interacting and discussing what justice has put forth. Right? 20 minutes, then we can back. If we can be fast, the better for us. Karibuni kwa chai. Kuna ndugu alipoteza jana simu. Tafadhali kama ulipata simu ambayo si yako mahali hapa, kindly rejesha ili tuweze